So I was a sea turtle biologist, and one of the things that we discovered in sea turtle biology when we watched turtles come ashore to nest, and then 60 days later or so their hatchlings would go out to the ocean, but sometimes the hatchlings would turn around and go away from the ocean and end up in the road. Um, so we can see, in talking about the scientific method, the first step, I think, of the scientific method is a scientist observes something. We observe dead hatchlings in the road. And so that, of course, brings forth the question, why is it dead? What happened? So that's the second step in the scientific method. And it's actually the first step in your book, but I consider it the second step. It doesn't matter. The order is what's important, not whether it's number one or number two or whatever. Anyway, so once you have a well-defined question, why is this turtle dead in the road, you can come up with potential answers to that question. That's what hypotheses are. So you can come up with a potential answer that maybe it's because of the lights that are alongside of the road, or maybe the turtles like the smell of asphalt and they end up in the road. So you see, when you're doing the scientific method correctly, you come up with a number of different hypotheses. You don't want to just come up with one and say, oh yeah, that's it, because that's not really science. It's just not science. So once you've come up with some potential answers to your question or some potential hypotheses, the next phase is to either run an experiment, or if you're looking at something that happened in the past and you have enough data on it, you can do a correlation study. In this case, we actually ran an experiment. And in that experiment, you can see I've diagrammed it here, like you'll diagram your experiments when your proposed experiments in the assignment that's coming up. So I've diagrammed this experiment. I have 3 different tanks, and the sea turtles are in the tanks. They're on the sand. There's no water in the tanks because it's like they're on the beach. I've tried to recreate those conditions. And we set up 3 tanks. 1 is a control and 2 are the test tanks. Now it's important to set up a control, which means everything is the same in all 3 tanks, except for the experimental tanks have what you're experimenting on, or what the potential answers to your hypotheses are. So we have a control tank that has all of the same things as the experimental tanks, just to check and make sure that it's not something about the tank that's causing the sea turtles to behave however, that we would know for sure that it's because of the what are called the independent variables. So an independent variable is what the scientist, or what you are manipulating. In this case, we put lights in one tank, we put asphalt in another tank, and then we run the test. Now you can see from this picture that I've diagrammed 3 sea turtles in each tank. Really, you do a lot more, because the more data you have, the sure you are of your answers, that your answers are actually supporting your hypothesis or not. So we ran the experiment a number of times, again, because that's important to have as much data as possible. And what we found after running it again and again with 10 turtles per tank per time, we found that the hatchlings tended to go towards the light. They didn't really care about the asphalt. And in the control tank, they just ran around too. But in the tank with the light, they came right up to the light. They were even clambering up trying to get at it. The hatchling movement, the data that we were collecting, that's the dependent variable. It's dependent on your independent variables. So the turtle movement is dependent on whether there's a light in the tank or not. So our conclusion was that if you put a white light in a tank, the turtles go to it, they're attracted to it. Now that serves as an observation, doesn't it? So we observe these turtles trying to get at this white light. Our question might be, knowing that there's all different colors of light in white light, our question might be, is it a specific color they're attracted to? So then our hypotheses would be, oh, it's the blue portion of the white light, or it's green light, or it's red light. And we could set up tanks again and test all of those, which in fact we did. And then our conclusion from that it was blue light, serves as an observation and leads to other questions. So that's the way the scientific method goes. It keeps going and going and going.